Hey, I'm JDog, and today I'm going to do a video on how to make an all-aluminum screened chameleon cage. These cages are really easy to make, they're really great, they're relatively inexpensive to build, and the advantages of doing it yourself is you can custom size it and design it to meet your particular needs. The cage I'm going to be building today is going to be 18 inches wide by 18 inches deep by 36 inches tall. The first thing we're going to go over is the materials that you're going to need to build this cage. Alright, to build this cage you're going to need a roll of aluminum screen. You're going to need 7, or actually you'll need 8 of these 7-foot long aluminum screen frames. All this stuff is available at Lowe's or Home Depot. You're going to need 50 feet of the .125 diameter screen spline. You're going to need a spline tool. You'll need 7, possibly 8, depending on how you build your cage, of these screen frame corners. There's 4 to a pack. You're going to need a box of 8 by 18 by 3/4 inch self-tapping metal screws. I use the type with the hex head as opposed to Phillips head. They work a little better. You can use a ratchet tool, makes it a lot easier to do. You'll need a utility knife. Another thing that's optional, but it makes it a whole lot easier, is a miter box. It's good for cutting your frames really square. That way you don't have any deviation in your frameage. You need a pack of these nylon buttons. This will be used to close the door. Some type of door handle. 1 pack of 1-inch aluminum hinges. These are zinc hinges actually, either will work. You'll need some 6 20 by 1/2 sheet metal screws, self-tapping. You're going to need 2 drill bits. You're going to need one 1/16 bit, the smallest one in this particular pack, and then you're going to need a 1/8 one. A pair of scissors, obviously a drill, and another thing that can come in handy is a Dremel tool. That's optional. The meter box is optional as well, but it makes it a lot easier in the end if you got that. Another thing that will make it easier is some clear packing tape or duct tape. Masking tape will work too. You're going to need a hacksaw. A lot of these miter boxes come with a saw. Doesn't really work as great with these metal frame cutting. Hacksaw works a lot better, but you can get by with either one. That's basically all the stuff you're going to need. So next we'll go over to the first step in getting started on this thing. Okay, the first thing I do when I'm building this cage is I cut all of my aluminum pieces first. I measure them out and cut them all right then and there. It saves time than having to stop and go back and do it. That 36 by 18 by 18 inch cage, I've built this many times before, so I know what size each pieces are going to need to be cut. If you're building a different size cage, like a 24 by 24 by 48, you're going to have different measurements, obviously. But with that, you might have to measure as you go along. The thing about measuring them is, depending on the width of your cage, you've got to compensate for the corner pieces. So you're going to have some odd-sized aluminum pieces to fit to make it the width that you're going to want. So if you're going to go ahead with the 36 by 18 by 18, this is what size aluminum frame pieces you're going to need cut. Alright, so I'm going to start measuring these out and we'll start cutting them. Alright, right now, the materials you're going to need your miter box, tape measure, your utility knife, your hacksaw, and another item that's very helpful that I forgot to mention earlier is a good square. This keeps all your lines straight. The miter box keeps your lines straight so that all your cuts are 90-degree angles. That way when you build it up, your cage, it's all square and everything goes in flush and meets right. Okay, I'm going to cut one of my 34 7/8 inch pieces. I usually set my tape measure out and just lock it in place just a couple of inches longer than what the size of it's going to be. It's a little easier that way. Basically what I do, I use this utility knife. You find your mark, just make a small score. This aluminum framing, you can scrape it and it leaves a bright silver mark typically. Right there. Just make you a mark. Then what I do is I take my square, and just square it up along that little mark, and take the utility knife again. And I just scrape me a perfect mark in there. That's right at the exact mark that I'm going to need. Just lay it down inside of your miter box here. Okay, now that you've got all of your screen frames cut out to the particular size they need to be, I've laid them all out here on the table, and I've labeled each size and which panel that each one of these different size pieces is going to be used to create. And right now you're going to need your plastic frame corners, and we'll get going on putting the frame pieces together to create the panels for the cage. Just for quick reference, I'm going to give a close-up of what each size is used for. You're going to need the 34 7/8 for your side panels, your 34 1/4 for your back panel, your 16 1/2 are going to be for the side, top, and bottom panels. The 15 7/8 ones are going to be for the top, bottom, and the front lower panel. 25 3/4 are going to create the door panel. 15 1/16 are going to create the door panel as well. The 6 and 15 16ths will be the lower front. Your 35 5/8 will be the door stop, and the 27 3/16 will be your hinge piece. And I'll explain all of these as we go along. Alright, assembling these panels is fairly simple. Screen frame plastic corners are designed to only fit the proper way. You can't put them together wrong. So basically you just start creating the panels by the way I had them labeled. If you made a note of how they're labeled, you just pick the sizes as you need. We'll go ahead and we'll make a top panel. You're going to need 2 of the 15 7/8 inch ones and 2 of the 16 1/2 inch ones. And another thing that comes in handy is a small hammer, or maybe a rubber mallet's even better. Sometimes they're kind of stubborn when you want to get them to fit together. But you want to tap them together, maybe with a small hammer. You can do that. I'm sure you've noticed on these frames, there's a front solid space, and in the back has a small groove in it. That's going to be the inside of your panel. But these corners are designed to only go in a specific way. You have to kind of give them a little pressure to get them in there. But like I said, you want to be very careful not to bend these frames. These frames are aluminum. They're rather soft, and they can bend real easy or warp. So be careful when putting these in there. Now, putting the two together is where you're more likely to warp or bend one of the frames. This is a part of it where you have to be particularly careful. I just kind of use the table as something solid to get each one of these on, but assembling the two parts together in the next step. This can be kind of tricky. So what I do, I just get everything get them lined up together. Just gently tap them in there. You don't want to beat on them. You might bend those frames. Just gently tap them in. You want to tap these frame corner pieces until they butt flush with this square portion right here. There you go. That's one of your panels. This is going to be either a bottom or a top to it.